Welcome back. This is Evelyn Selina's show. Today we want to speak about how to make profits out of good agronomic practices. Your host, as usual, Evelyn Selina. If you're new to this channel, please remember to subscribe, hit the notification button so that you are notified anytime we upload any videos. And if you like the content, please like, so that we're able to reach out to as many people as possible. Good agronomic practices. Farming has a lot of good and bads, but the basic thing is that you must be able to practice good agronomic practices, especially when you're doing cropping, fruit production, tree seedlings, anything farming. In fact, they determine the kind of production you will have, they determine the cost of production, because if you do not have good agronomic practices, especially prevention, early weeding, you can be sure you will spend a lot in curative measures other than preventive. So when you observe good agronomic practices, then you're very sure you will have cut a lot of cost of production and therefore making some profits out of your fields. The number one thing is early land preparation. When you prepare lands early, then it means you take advantage of the start or the beginning of the rains. That means that your crops will enjoy the first rains, and therefore even if we have short rains, even if rains don't last as you expected, then you'll have taken advantage of the early onset. Second thing is application of the recommended fertilizers. This comes in handy by first doing your soil sampling. When you do your soil sampling, your agronomist or your agricultural officers in your area or the companies that you rely on for agronomic advice will already be able to advise you on the kind of fertilizers you will be using. And you'll also have understood your farm when you do soil sampling. Then you will be able to identify the kinds of fertilizer you require, the amounts of fertilizers you require. If your farm's acidity has risen, then you will be also advised accordingly. So the best thing is that do soil sampling so that you are able to determine the kinds of fertilizer you will be using and also the levels of fertilizer applications you'll be using. Thirdly is use of recommended spacing. If you don't use correct spacing, then you will be sure that you're going to lose out on the crops you will be planting. Basically because if you plant crops with very close spacings that are not recommended, then competition for nutrients will be very high. Some crops will also be shading other crops. That means light will not be sufficient for crops, and therefore crops will now be competing for light other than to produce what they're supposed to be producing. If you also put very wide spacing that is not recommended, then it means you will be underutilizing your field, you will be underutilizing your farm. So ensure to use the correct spacing, because when you have the right plant population in your farm, it will help you determine the amount of fertilizer to use. It will utilize the naturally available space, it will utilize the naturally available nutrients and also the added nutrition. You will be sure that every crop, every plant is utilizing the space accordingly. So ensure to be able to understand proper spacing of the crop. Whatever crop you will be planting, be it trees, be it fruit trees, be it maize, any crop, you must be able to know the recommended spacing. Sometimes cost of production is very high, especially bearing in mind that you are purchasing certified seeds and all that kind of thing. The most important thing never to ignore is pest and disease control. I always advise farmers that it is very important for you to use preventive measures other than curative. Other most important aspect of good agronomic practices is pest and disease control. Before you do pest and disease management, it is very important for you to begin by prevention. There are so many things that you can do to prevent pest infestation, to prevent disease infestation. Of course, other diseases just come because probably you didn't notice, but it is very important to adopt pest and disease control measures, so that even if pests come, then they will not overwhelm your field, they will not overwhelm you with the chemical use and the amount of cost that will be utilized. Another thing is timely weeding. Why timely weeding? When you plant your crop and it germinates, and at the same time you also have weeds in the field, then you're sure that whatever nutrients in that soil will be utilized by both the weeds and your crop. That means it is going to lower productivity. If you did a 50 kg of fertilizer, then this 50 kg of fertilizer is not only being utilized by your crop, but being shared by the weeds, therefore reducing the productivity, therefore reducing the amount of nutrient uptake for your crop. So very important for you to weed, and weed at the right time. Weeds are also houses for other pests and diseases. They harbor pests and diseases or disease vectors. So when you have them in the farm, then you're sure that you have also provided a house for the pest that you really want to control so badly, the disease vectors that will you also need to control so badly. So it's very, very necessary for you to have a field that is weed free for so many reasons. Other weeds are also you may also have planted a crop that weeds of this that are from the same family grow. So when weeds from the same family of your crop grow or germinate, then it means they share diseases, they share pests, so they can attract pests and diseases, therefore now affecting the whole crop or the whole plantation. So very important, very key to do proper and timely weeding. It's also very important, especially when you're doing manual weeding, using hand, using a hose, using jembes, then it is very important for you also not to weed. The soils are very wet and you're having your jembe and you're weeding, then you can be sure that that is also a way of introducing fungal infection to your plants. Another most important aspect of good agronomic practices is proper post-harvest handling. Especially when you're doing perishable goods, it is very important for you to understand. It is very important for you to understand how to harvest, and after harvesting, then you know how to handle them after harvesting. Because if you do not understand post-harvest handling and treatment, then you may have done a very good job throughout the production period and then lose out because you do not know how to handle your crops or your produce after harvest. So very important, very key. Put that in mind. In the next video, we'll continue to discuss about agriculture. See you then.